ThinkingRealEstate.com is on the air.
That's such a great song.
That's your song.
There it is.
Or Bill's.
Bill's busy writing.
AKA the Laura and Bill Show.
That's right.
And I'm just trying to avoid looking at it with those glasses. That's all. That's my sole objective this morning.
You have to get on. Well, is the internet in color?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
I don't know. We'll have to ask Gore and see if he invented it that way.
Yikes.
I'm going to get on there today. I want to see what that looks like.
I was talking to a realtor/attorney this morning, and
You know, your jacket fits in well,
I know,
too.
doesn't it?
That
I
is-
like to coordinate.
That is perfect.
It's all about coordination. But I was talking to
thought it was fair
someone
weight.
today, and I told them they're in the truck. You said what?
I thought it was Fair Week.
Yeah, and then you were going to be making balloons for the kids.
Yeah,
You know, you can be replaced.
I could, but they haven't done it for 30 years, so
So you don't think they're going to do it
I'll
now?
probably last another day.
Uh-oh. Shoot. Anyhow, I was telling him we were doing a radio show, and he said, "That's really sweet."
Who said that?
And he said it sincerely, though.
That's because
really
he hasn't
sweet.
listened to this show.
That's really sweet. But the shout out I have a shout out.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I had my neighborhood meeting last Thursday night.
Now, how did that go?
It went well. I had about 40 people there.
That's good.
And you know, I sent out a newsletter, and we took it to the post office on February 22nd, and people are just getting it this week. And
Yeah.
I will say they're kind of upset that they missed my meeting, which is nice to hear because I would have had sounds like there's people who are interested in.
Well, it's probably a good thing they didn't show up because it was a packed house. Every seat was filled. So
Yeah,
they
I mean
just
there are a
started
few
off.
empty ones, but yeah. But I'm disappointed it didn't get to them in time and that they couldn't come to that one. But they can come to the next
So
one.
are you going to, mail out an update every month? or-
I'm gonna try and do it 3 times a year. I mean,
Okay.
I'm right now at this point, I have to pay for it. So we had
This is pretty fancy.
yeah, I had people advertise in my newsletter, which was awesome, which helped me defer the cost. There's a whole list. I got 12.
You notice that she made me
You're in
buy
this.
some advertising in
Yeah.
the newsletter.
You're kidding.
Yeah, I'm not kidding.
Oh, you have a whole
Well, but look,
page of
John
advertising.
Palachuk, our District 8 County Commissioner,
Wow. It's
put
like John
info
lost
in there,
weight.
which I thought was great. Robin's Roost Tavern. Look at that. You can get a burger there, $1.
That's amazing.
Or 3 tacos for $1 on Taco Tuesday. And then Mid-Michigan Health Centers, the doctors there. That's where you go, isn't it?
Yeah, Rosenberg.
Yep. Mortgage One, they're our only mortgage company in the city of Jackson.
Really?
I think
didn't know
so.
that.
I think so. And then Pack and Ship, they're a new company on Northwest Avenue. Well, they're not a new company. They have a second location.
Right.
So that's really cool that they're right there. Great location. G-Force is right across the street from Pack and Ship, and they are new last year in the city. They came out of Summit Township. And then we have Rapid Refill and Maggie Moo's. They're next to each other over there in the Joanne Shopping Center. And look, you get 10% off at Maggie Moo's. And then Brandon Warner at State Farm. We got to talk to him about life insurance, especially after today's topic when we
Especially
talk
since I'm
about
getting
divorce.
old. Yeah. Can
Yeah.
I give a quick shout out just to
Wait,
Dick,
one more,
Dick
and then
Schneider, 'cause
Brown
Dick's listening
Advanced
to this
Care.
show today. Okay.
So I really appreciate their support.
You're welcome.
And Bill Schlechte. Well, I always appreciate you, honey. So, my shout out though is to Bob and Audrey Meisner. They came to the meeting, and then I ran into him at Kroger's, and he said he
Long-time
loves.
listener.
Yeah, he said that, and then he said that he loves listening to us. He didn't say bicker, but that's what he meant.
Kibitz.
Yeah.
Kibitz.
Well, kibitz.
Something like that.
Yeah, right. It all depends upon whether you're from the East Coast or the West Coast. You're obviously from the West Coast where it's kibitz. I'm from the East Coast where it's kibitz.
I'm from the Central Coast.
Kibitz and nibbles. Nibbles
Yeah, right.
and kibitz. Isn't there a dog food?
You know,
or
you have a
cat food?
coupon in your
Yeah, for Maggie Moo's.
that's the first of all time in the city. A council person in their update had a coupon.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Probably the first of all time. Maybe the city that a city council person sent out a newsletter, but
No, we've had some newsletters, but
yeah.
not,
From a city
not quite
council
this
person?
fancy.
Yeah. Well, Jackie did it. She's awesome. And
Good job, Jackie.
we're going to try and get it online, aren't we, Jackie?
Working on it.
And I think the city liked this so well that they may try and produce it for the whole city. Not this particular one, but something similar.
used
And
to.
I'm getting amazing feedback on
Did
it.
they used to do a newsletter?
Yes.
Yeah, and then it got pulled out of the budget. And
Yeah.
so they couldn't help me pay for this because it wasn't in the budget.
I understand. That's why Bill helped you, and Maggie Moo, and
Yeah, all those advertisers. So go visit them. They're nice people.
Did I pay for those glasses, by the way?
I did. Good, thank you.
All right.
You can go to
Yeah, you really. I mean,
thinkingrealestate.com.
we're sitting here talking about these glasses, but anybody that's interested, you have to go to our website and see these glasses. They are. It's
And if
difficult.
you like them, hit the like button on the.
is that the same pair you had last time?
Yeah, same
Do
shit.
they look
last
better
year,
this
yeah.
time?
Oh, I thought they had. Oh, there's the purple.
Yeah.
I was missing the purple.
Yeah.
Cause see, you sat on the other
Yeah, so you could see it.
Boy, oh boy.
green, orange, and purple frames.
Boy, oh boy. All right, so what are we talking about
Did
today?
you have a shout out?
I did. Dick Schneider. I already said
Oh,
it.
I'm sorry, I missed it. I was talking. We are talking this time on the financial changes in our life. We're going to talk about common questions about real estate and divorce.
Real estate and divorce, or real estate in divorce?
Well, yeah, it says in divorce, but if I get a divorce, if I'm contemplating divorce,
I'm
what
not
should I
giving you
think
any
of?
advice.
What
I'm
should
not
I
gonna
think
give you
about
any advice.
before I get that
You gotta be
divorce?
kidding. Okay.
You should seek wise legal counsel.
Yeah, that's probably the smartest thing. But, you know, I actually tried a malpractice case against a lawyer. Probably
I remember that.
6-7 years ago, who represented the party in a divorce, prepared a deed which failed to include, there were several properties involved, failed to include the one of the properties, and a very important and very valuable property that was to have been quitclaimed by the wife to the husband, and it's now discovered 7-8 years later. I'm trying to remember if it was as a result of a refinance or something was going
He
on.
sold
or a
it.
division, sold it. Find out that the lawyer, some 6 or 7 or 8 years before, had failed to include this particular property, so I ended up having to sue the lawyer for malpractice at a jury trial. And the jury came back with the full amount which we claimed, and the next day the lawyer filed bankruptcy. So the valuable lesson in that one is just make certain that whatever the agreement is between the parties, make absolutely certain that the documentation reflects what that agreement is, and this was an error in drafting, which
Was that an error, or was it a covert attempt
it was,
to hide that?
well,
No,
here you go. No, because it was one lawyer representing both parties to the transaction. There
Oh, wow,
was only
that's-
one lawyer.
Right.
That's strange.
And
Well,
the ex-
unfortunately,
and the
it-
ex was still upset.
And unfortunately, it's
8
still,
or 10
well,
years
let's not
later.
go into that part of it, but the problem is that I think that occurs in a lot of divorces because, again, the people are in distress, don't have a lot of money, maybe not a lot of property, and so they figure it's straightforward, they're amicable, and so they get one lawyer to draft it up, and that was the circumstance here. I won't say where the location was in Michigan, but yeah, we ended up having to try it against a lawyer, getting the judgment, but the lawyer was judgment-proof by filing bankruptcy. So that's the one thing. The corollary to that is, even though you think you know what the status of title is, if you're the spouse getting that property particularly, I would always do a title search to make certain that there are no other liens that intervene between the time you and your spouse acquired the property.
Surprises.
And the time, yeah. Get a title search, it's not expensive. You go to one of the local title companies, pay for that title search, verify what the status of title is. So that's the corollary to making certain the documentation is accurate, that the names are accurate, that the property is included, etc. And then the last thing, and this is one that I'm going through right now. I mean, and this has occurred on numerous occasions throughout my practice, where one spouse is awarded the property, there's a mortgage on it, which is given by both spouses. So the spouse who's not getting the property gives a quitclaim deed to the spouse who is getting the property. The problem is there's still a mortgage on it. So now, in many of those situations, the spouse who is not getting the property, you all following me here, is required to make or to continue to make all or a portion of the mortgage payments. The ex-spouse fails to make those mortgage payments, the mortgage gets foreclosed, the spouse who was awarded the property loses the property as a result of the foreclosure. I have one going on right now that's the identical circumstance, and there isn't a solution.
And I'm getting one that's the opposite of that.
Well, but it goes back again to the lawyers who are representing the parties in the divorce. They have to think about what the consequences are if the party, the ex-spouse,
Why wouldn't the party who's getting the property assume the mortgage?
Doesn't always happen that way.
The bank
because
wants
of
it.
because of the
Doesn't
economics.
the bank want everybody on?
But wouldn't that be written in, or?
Let me give you the classic example. And again, this isn't intended to be sexist, gender-related, etc. But typically, it's the ex-wife who may end up with a house because it's a custodial home for the kids. And I don't do divorce work, and I want to make that very clear here. I don't handle divorces. But ends up with the property, the custodial home. The ex-spouse is required to make payments on the mortgage, and they're not cast as alimony, which would not be dischargeable in bankruptcy, not cast as child support, which is not dischargeable in bankruptcy, but simply the obligation to continue making the mortgage payments. And I've seen this on many occasions, on numerous occasions. And the one I've got going right now, the ex-husband is in bankruptcy, filed bankruptcy, discharged the debt in bankruptcy because it was neither alimony nor child support. He's off the hook. She's stuck with the house, with the mortgage on it, and unable to make the mortgage payments.
And I'm getting one that's the ex-husband has the house, and the ex-wife is on the mortgage, and they're probably going to stop. The ex-husband's going to stop making payments because the house isn't worth what the mortgage is.
Right, now that's a different circumstance.
Actually, the ex-husband's not on the mortgage at all. The person in possession of the house is not on the mortgage.
The difficulty with that is that you now have somebody well, actually, that's not a bad circumstance. I mean, she's not on the mortgage, you're saying?
No, he's in possession of the house, and he's not on the mortgage.
He's not in possession.
And
He's not on the mortgage. So what's the problem?
They're going to let it go back to the bank.
Well, they're not going to let it go. She's going to let it go. So what's the difficulty with that? It's not going to affect his credit rating because...
Right. But it's going to affect the ex-wife that doesn't have possession of the house.
I misunderstood your example. The problem arises where someone remains liable on a debt that someone else is responsible for paying, that someone else doesn't pay it. Now, all of a sudden, the other person who didn't have the obligation to pay, they're trashed. Their credit rating is trashed. That's a different issue, but yeah, it's again an issue that arises.
It's the reverse of what you've got. So.
Well, sort of. It's just a different circumstance.
Hopefully, the ex-wife has moved on and doesn't care about her credit because it will be destroyed.
Yeah, part of the problem is divorce lawyers don't necessarily know real property law or the issues arising with respect to liability of indebtedness or for indebtedness. I mean, there's sort of not necessarily a disconnect, but a divorce lawyer has to be abreast of what is happening, understand that they need to know exactly the status of the assets and the liabilities that are being parceled out in the divorce. And it's not easy, and I'm not suggesting divorce lawyers don't do this. Good divorce lawyers do, and they're aware of all these things, and they have checklists they go down to make certain that all those liabilities, all those assets are properly addressed.
So what happens if I own the house before I got married? I, as a woman, own the house before I got married, and then we get married, and then I divorce you.
No problem for you.
Okay, I get the house, right?
Yeah, it's your house. You own it. There's nothing. You would put it in the divorce judgment probably that I've relinquished all interest in whatever property you have. So that would be part of the judgment. The reverse of that is difficult, and that is.
So if you own it
Well,
before.
what if you live together 20 years? I mean, would the
And I bought the house?
no,
it makes
that's-
a difference on who bought the house.
same scenario, but would the
Okay.
husband have any claim to that
property?
Yeah, maybe that's a different issue, and again, that's for a divorce lawyer, depending
Yeah.
upon the length of the marriage, who's got the substantial income versus the other spouse, that sort of thing. But that's a divorce issue, and my guess is that the greater the longevity of the marriage, the more rights I have as a spouse in the event of divorce. I mean,
But it's her house, she bought it.
it's her house, she bought it, but over that 20 years, we've been making mortgage payments out of our joint income, so now, even though I don't have a legal
Well, now,
interest
let's
in it,
say she had it free and clear when you got,
did we put an addition on it? Did we?
let's say you didn't.
You just heated
Sure,
it.
give me every single mythical example you can possibly come up with. The point here is you'd have to look at who contributed what to that particular asset over the years. Typically, over a period of 20, 30 years, I'm going to have done something with respect to that property.
I guess my question, Bill, would be, would she have to compensate the husband at all for taking the house?
Might be because it's the marital residence.
Because
even
he
though it
put
was
20
hers.
years into scrubbing the floors? Or
Yeah, put 20 years into the
gardening?
But you
marriage,
had to
etc.
live somewhere.
Let me answer.
That's what I would've
maybe
said.
I'm older than she is. I'm 11 years older than she is. My ability to earn income as I get older may diminish compared to hers. So now, in terms of what she's going to have to compensate me for, may depend upon, or will depend upon, the longevity of the marriage. Again, we're getting into divorce lawyer questions, and
Right.
there's some very good divorce lawyers in town. I wouldn't presume to tread on their turf.
So what if you owned the
Yeah,
property?
that's what I was going to say.
before
If
we
I
got
own the
married?
property, here's what happens. In Michigan, where I own property in my own name, I get married to you. It's like zap. Dower attaches.
Yeah.
There's an interest in Michigan called dower, which is the interest a wife has in the property of her husband, owned by the husband during the period of marriage. It applies only to Michigan wives, so if she leaves the state of Michigan and is no longer a resident, dower doesn't apply. But as long as she's a Michigan resident, dower attaches the instant I say I do at that wedding ceremony. Boy, I did.
You did.
Yeah, and now she has dower. We have to address that, and in fact, there's a statute in Michigan that requires the judgment of divorce to address what happens to dower, and she will end up relinquishing her dower as a result of the divorce.
He thinks.
I will end up. It'll be negotiated, but she has that
Yeah.
dower interest because if I die, she has a life estate in and to 1/3 of the real property I own during my lifetime. That's one interest
Where's
which
the
a
other
wife has.
2/3 go?
Well, what happens is if I only own the one parcel of property, it would be liquidated. The value of your life estate would be paid. But there's also another interest that I would have, and you talk about if she died owning her property in her own name, I would have a right of homestead to occupy that property for 1 year after her date of death.
If you're still married?
No, she dies. In other words, she dies. I'm talking about, this is not in divorce.
If
now.
I own-
if she owns
Right.
a
If
I own the
marital
property?
residence, she
Okay.
owns a marital residence here in Michigan. She dies. I have no interest in that property, right? I have no legal title at all.
Yeah, but you live there.
Since I live there, there's a statute in Michigan that gives me a right to occupy that marital residence, even though I hold no legal title, for a period of up to 1 year following the date of death. Our state will not simply let her kids, for example,
Jackie can't boot
boot
you
me
out.
out of the marital residence
I've
for that
instructed her
1 year
to.
period. That's the other thing in divorce. I have to tell you, if you carry it one step farther, when someone gets divorced, acquires property, now gets remarried, and the new spouse has children. If I don't figure out some way to protect my property now as the spouse, the spouse with the property, part of that property will end up going to my surviving spouse and not to my children. If you die without a will, if you die intestate, there's a law of intestacy, a statute of descent and distribution that favors the surviving spouse over the children. So you want to be aware of that one as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, this
And
is
we're going to talk
a-
about mixing families next week and real estate.
Okay, that's fine. I was going to say,
So
there's a
that-
lot you can talk about. And in the meanwhile, if I get a chance, I've got a bunch of court proceedings going between now and next Thursday, but if I get a chance, I'll call one of the premier divorce lawyers in Jackson County and get his or her comments on this particular subject. And if there's one of you sitting out there listening and not sitting in court and listening to the radio show, give me a
I'm
call.
sure they're all.
Yeah,
they're
get-
recording it though.
Give me a call.
and you can always go to thinkingrealestate.com and listen
Yeah.
to it
Yeah,
if you
that
miss
too.
it. Okay, I have 2 properties I want to talk real quick about. 20 2812 South Wooddale.
2812.
2812 South Wooddale. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bath. That's that nice condo project over there by Lumen Christie. Nice. This is a 2-story, 121.9, full basement, beautiful property. And then 405 Seneca is listed for 94.9, and that is a huge reduction. Just came back on the market. That's a clean as a whistle, one-time owner property, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, nice full basement, beautiful enclosed porch. That's, if nobody knows where Seneca is that subdivision on the northwest corner of Detman and East Michigan Avenue.
Find out more, thinkingrealestate.com.